we still put men in corsets underneath, and they did too.
So Chantel, tell us a little bit about the types of costuming that they had during Shakespeare's time.
Well, they had clothes. They weren't costumes; they were clothes. So you had rich benefactors giving you their hand-me-downs, their cast-offs, not the hand-me-downs. You had people using their own stuff. There's records of theatre costumes being worth more than the actual building, and that's probably true nowadays of many theatre companies too, in all honesty. It's one of those things where they had to make do with what they had, but they were trying to also represent on the stage different parts of society, and whereas people in real life probably weren't regarding the sumptuary laws as best they should, on the stage they were trying to do that. There are accounts of people trying to do that. So, when you have your certain colours for certain stations that you're not allowed to wear unless you are that station, that's what they're going to have on the stage to represent that, because that's what people would know.
So when you say station, you mean status level within society?
Yeah, that kind of thing. And I mean, that's why, there's certain references in Shakespeare to colours and to people wearing odd things, or, so that is the moment where they dress up in those things.
Great. And sumptuary laws were the laws that controlled or basically stated what you were allowed to wear in certain situations, yeah?
And how much of a piece of cloth you were allowed, and what type of cloth you were allowed, how much you were allowed to spend each year on your clothing was also dictated. And of course, back in the Elizabethan times, every man and boy had to wear a brown woolen hat. It was by law, and you could be fined for it. So it's quite, there's a whole bunch of stuff. Just like they had to go to the archery, to the butts, and there were certain games you weren't allowed to play. Only noblemen were allowed to do bowling. Commoners weren't allowed to. Once again, a fine if you did these things. So, yeah, there's a whole lot of laws that people were meant to live by, but they really didn't.
So we know men performed in women's roles on Shakespeare's stage in Shakespeare's time. How did they dress the men? Like, where did they get the dresses from? That kind of thing. What do we know about that?
Surprisingly enough, like they got the dresses from where you get dresses from, women. There's no difference in dressing a man to dressing a woman. We found this out through our practice at Pop-Up, because a lot of people, when they first joined us, I remember our cutter at first was like, oh, how do we cut it for a man? I'm like, you cut it for a woman, because it's a woman. You don't change things just because you've got a male body in there. And also bodies come in all different shapes and sizes and forms, depending on, the certain parts that men and women both have. But, it's how things are, I guess, headed. And we still put men in corsets underneath, and they did too, as far as I'm aware. It's just what you do. But yeah,
Oh.
No difference. That just in a dress, man in dress, or boy
so
in a dress.
A lot of the clothes were actually sourced from patrons of the players' groups. Is that kind of predominantly where costumes would be sourced from, or?
Yeah, and also themselves. And they would keep a wardrobe. They would hire the wardrobe out. They would lend it amongst different players, because, of course, just like nowadays with community theatre and stuff, you don't have a lot of money. So you borrow things, you lend things, you share things around. There's lots of records of what they actually wore and what they had in their stock. So it's fascinating to read into and to look into.
There we go. Thanks so much to Chantel for having a bit of a yarn with us. If you got something out of this video, it'd be great if you gave it a like, subscribe to the channel, and of course, if you know anybody that might get some benefit from it as well, please pay it forward, share it with them, tag them in the comments, whatever you can do to help them out as well. And of course, have a look at one of these other videos that'll pop up real soon, and I will see you there.